So we'll make a start. So yes, this is the after lunch slot. Please try not to fall asleep. Lunch was amazing, so very grateful to the venue for that. So we have Alex Wrottesley from iDocs come to talk to us about the evolution of open geospatial, a commercial view. So great. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thanks, Nick. So yeah, this is the after lunch slot. It's the sponsor slot, right? You get the sponsor slot. It's the first thing after lunch on day two. But I'm going to talk quite high level and quite quickly, hopefully, to go through this. So first of all views my own. This is not iDocs official policy. This is definitely my perspectives on this. I'm not going to go into technology here. I'm going to approach this from the perspective of someone who tries to get value out of data technology. I'm not an engineer, but I've worked with tech teams for about 20 years. And hopefully we can provide a view of what the trends and drivers and opportunities around our industry and where does FOSS fit in and where does it end. So a quick background check. I started off in geo. My early career I was bouncing around doing lots of marketing stuff, and in 2007 I set up probably the most noughties startup idea possible, a post-Second Life Mirrorverse prospect where we laser scanned a big chunk of the West End of London and built a real-time accuracy platform with about 10 centimetre accuracy. It was like amazing. But it was also this. Anyone know this one on exactitude and science? Great story by Jose Luis Borges about a mad king who asked his cartographer to build a one-to-one map of the world. It's a cautionary tale I wish I had read before I tried to build a one-to-one map of the world. Luckily, the financial crash in 2009 put paid to our more ambitious view, but what it turned out we built was really good for real-time visualization. So we found an amazing platform for property visualization. And we work for Battersea Power Station and Dubai developers. And this is the Crown Estate, St James's Market. If you know London, you might know it. That's it. That's Google Maps. So it's pretty close. I mean, this was done 2015, so 10 years ago. Fully rendered 3D views and stuff. After that, I went over to join Geovation. And some of you may know Geovation. Who knows Geovation here? Ah, good. Excellent. So I spent 5 years running Geovation and learnt a huge amount from both my own lessons in startups, but also working with about 150 startups. And if there's one thing I would take away from when I start a business, it's the balance between your technology and your sales teams. Every business that succeeded in that period had a really good, respectful relationship between a CTO and a CEO. The CTO knew he couldn't do it without a sales guy, and the sales guy knew he couldn't do it without someone building it. Every time they got out of whack, it all went wrong. Every time. CTOs, I will build the most amazing thing. Everyone will buy it. No. Salespeople, I will sell the most amazing thing. The coders will build it. No. Together. And now I'm at iDocs. So I went through to here via Landmark, where I spent 4 years. And iDocs Geospatial, now we are more than 100 people. And we cover a huge range of stuff from local authority services, doing heritage data management and countryside access management. We have our ground mapper platform, which is a web GIS tool, and we do data sales up to really large contracts. Yesterday we signed our biggest ever contract, which is nearly £4 million. So I'm very proud of the team for this week. And that's the kind of the core of our business. Beyond that, I also have some side hustles. You may have seen the Geo 100. This was something we put together a few months ago, as just a nice way to recognise people, and we'll be announcing that later this month. I was also involved in the Ethical Geo Locus Charter, which was an initiative supported by the Media Network to do ethical use of location data, which is now adopted by all the major global bodies, and recently joined this amazing new outfit set up by Rachel Caldicott called the Society of Hopeful Technologists. And if you are very frustrated by the state of the technology world, look it up, join it up. It's a mission of why can't technology make the world better? Because that's kind of what I think we all got into this for. Anyway, that's me. So, cracking on quickly. Stephen Fellman, many of you here may know, always ask the question, what's the business model? How are you going to make money? How are you going to make money? And I think fundamentally, what my approach is, you've got to make profit out of this, you know. Now, many in this room are doing it for the love of it, and that's absolutely fine. I'm coming with the commercial view, which is most things need someone to pay the bills. And I think in my career, I've been involved in raising money, incubating startups, managing large businesses, building things from scratch. And I think sometimes this community feels a bit guilty about asking for the money. We're very bad at adding value to what we do. Geo salaries are always lower than the industry average, which is just insane because the value we add is greater, but we charge ourselves out for less. And there's something really weird about it. I think because everyone loves this stuff, they don't charge the right amount of money for it. So I think really push on that. Fast has always been seen as risky. There's been this perception of, open source, it's not a safe option. I should go with the easy things or the off-the-shelf stuff. And yes, having dependencies, can have an issue. The perception of maintenance costs, I might have a lot of things coming in from outside and maybe not want to buy from small organizations. Those are all things that are real drivers against this. But that dynamic is changing in my view, and I think we're beginning to see much more increased professionalization and stability of the core FOSS offers. So stuff that even 5 or 10 years ago was really tricky to rely on, you really can now. And beyond that, the landscape is changing. So this is my only AI slide. I think it's really easy to take for granted what's happened over the past 20 years in terms of technology change. Most of these are logarithmic scales. I mean, it is insane what we can do now that we couldn't do even 5 or 10 years ago. And I think that on every metric, that change of access to almost unlimited computational storage and network resources has created an environment where we can do lots more for lots less. I mean, Mark earlier talked about the serverless design patterns of being able to host vast, infinitely scaling databases and cloud-optimized geotiffs to access data without any intermediary layer, directly and serverless. Ubiquitous high-quality connectivity. We complain about our broadband connections, but most of us, most of the time, are able to handle Teams calls every single day, all the time. And that's quite impressive. And it also means that you can deliver hosted stuff far better than you ever could. A hosted offer now is not that different to an on-device offer. And that changes the dynamic of what you can offer and how you deliver it. I'm always a big believer in timing is everything. I was going to do a timing joke, but I haven't got the energy after lunch. This is my favorite website. This is a service called Zingo. This is a BBC article from 2003. We test a taxi service that pinpoints where you are and dispatches your nearest driver. This is literally Uber, like 20 years ago. And it was on the wireless application protocol. I had my 2.5G Ericsson phone. I tried it out and I used it in London. It was good, it worked. It didn't succeed. Not because it wasn't a great proposition and a great idea, it was literally 20 years too early. The pedants will know Uber actually started around 2016 actually, but 20 years sounds better. But that question of timing is critical, and right now there is definitely something happening with the alignment of compute, storage, availability, network capacity in a professionalizing industry that feels like a moment is emerging for FOSS to kind of really spread its wings. What makes spatial special? It's standards, people. So standards is obviously something we talked about a lot. From a commercial perspective, as a business owner, whether I'm a client or my own business, is anything that reduces my lock-in to other people's dependency is really valuable. Because the moment someone has lock-in to me, they can charge what they want. And whether you are looking at the Adobe subscription package, which once you're all in on Adobe, they can just keep on turning that dial. And that's a horrible place to find yourself. As a business owner, a business manager, I don't like those dependencies. So vendors don't tend to like interoperable standards. Stickiness is what they crave, but it does breed some complacency, I believe. I've been on both sides of the divide. I've also been the person trying to stop that because it's also commercially good to stop people going elsewhere. That's the game, right, of how you create value together. The only question really is whether a client can move or not. And standards provide the ability to let people to choose what to do. And ultimately, the customer wins. Because if you can choose what the best solution is from a variety of sources, you have better outcomes. For all its bureaucracy, OGC has been a huge driver of this in our industry. And those who know Ed Parsons appointed the chair this week. I heard literally yesterday. So congratulations to Ed. The other side of the people in this industry is, I think Alistair mentioned it this morning, we talked about curiosity. It's a generalization, but FOSS people tend to be tinkerers, fixers, makers, people who want to get their hands dirty and make things different or better. Another question, who here in this room has installed or run a Linux application? I rest my case, okay? That would not be the same in a non-FOSS4G room. But it means you're closer to the opportunities these tools and technologies can offer. You're close to what's possible. One trend I've seen is the adoption of the geospatial engineer being a new thing we're beginning to see, which wasn't really a thing 10 or 15 years ago. But now you can advertise for a geospatial engineer, and you're going to get someone who isn't just a GIS technician. And I'm not throwing any shade on people who are GIS technicians, but there's one thing being someone who can use a tool to deliver an outcome. There's another thing of someone who can create a tool, create a pipeline, create optimizations. And that is, if you want to hire someone to work with GIS data today, you probably want someone who can work with code, not just someone who can use an application. And that's where this part of the industry is so strong, because almost everyone in the FOSS community is at some level hands on the tools. So why today? Why today? Well, the clue's in the name: free and open source. I'm a big advocate of this, and I think the arc of history shows that open does make huge inroads. And I grabbed some graphs from some data we found, but software libraries, I mean, like literally 90% software libraries are open now. They weren't. It's hard to remember that. 2004, 80% were proprietary libraries. Servers often been a good start for Apache and the open side of things. 65% of servers are in open source stuff. Obviously, we know that Android is, although the profit might be with Apple, Android has by far and away the bigger share of the mobile market. Desktop is obviously still the big moat where they've really struggled to make progress. And GIS, about 10% is the estimate I come up with. From a standing start in 20 years, 10% of that market is impressive, right? And this is the opportunity. What happens here over the next decade? I think you need to be one of these to succeed. You can't be. He's cute, isn't he? Who doesn't like a chameleon? You can't be dogmatic. You've got to be really pragmatic and agnostic in the technologies you use. Customers don't care. Even the big ones who say they care, they don't care. They just want a solution that works for them. We cannot avoid the fact that that proprietary industry is going to be here for a long time to come. That's 90% of the market. It's not going anywhere. So just trying to be dogmatically, everything must be fast, and I can't sully myself with him. No, you will not win. You've got to create a blended offer that provides that capability of, yes, you can do stuff with open source where there's value, but also recognize you invest in supporting proprietary where you need to. We've just done this in our business. We've made a significant investment in supporting energy feature services for our clients because our clients want that. And we'd be fools not to support that use case. But also we've got OGC compliance standards. We've got a range of things to work with. Provide optionality, let customers choose. So the next 10 years. Well, first of all, again, all views my own, not financial advice. And take it with a pinch of salt. I think it's going to be pretty busy. I think it's going to be pretty, I won't say rough, but there's going to be a lot of new entrants into the market. We're seeing them right now. So if I've talked to some of you this week about new entrants into the GIS market, people like Felt. We've talked about coordinates. We've talked about GIS Cloud and others coming in. The barrier to entry to spin up new stuff is kind of low. And so there's lots of people doing things. There's a lot of money going into it. The incumbent, Esri, has a huge market share, and that's a prize others will try and compete for. And I think the barriers to competition are reducing. So I think this commercial opportunity, that thing is going to be really fiercely contested. We've done some analysis, and we estimate the UK market for geospatial. Now, you may have heard the Geospatial Commission a few years ago did this brilliant piece of work with Frontier Economics. You remember the numbers? 6 to 11 billion pounds is the geospatial market. What I could think about was you've paid Boston Consulting millions of pounds to give you the answer to the nearest 5 billion pounds. And that felt to me really poor value for money. It's not true either. I mean, yes, if you think about all the sum of geospatial location-based services in the UK market, it probably does come to there every Uber delivery, every routing algorithm, everything that has a geospatial. But that's not the addressable market for our industry. We think it's somewhere between 300 and 500 million pounds is the kind of the addressable market for geospatial data sales, geospatial software, and geospatial solutions. That might be a little bit, it's a ready reckoner. But if you think about that and with sort of less than 10, 15% of that accruing to the FOSS community, you can start to see the opportunity and the value of that prize and where it needs to go. So if you want to think about where you want to go, that's the commercial opportunity. Thank you very much. I will be done in time. I can't not talk about AI. I think it's a really interesting question as to the bits that we think are useful. Someone said to me, AI actually doesn't mean anything. AI is the promise of what's going to come in the future. Because all the stuff we have, we've got names for it. It's machine learning, it's analysis, it's a large language model. When you say AI, what you're saying is the auto-magical thing in the future that's going to solve the problems. There are some phenomenal applications. I said I've used it. I use it all the time in certain constrained ways. I think our developer teams have used it for various different parts of it. I know Nick's working on some really cool stuff with feature extraction, and we've got lots of good projects, but it's not a panacea. And there's going to be a lot of pain. We're going to end up with some really useful stuff, but it's going to be really bumpy. I shared this with someone earlier on today. All the AI revenue in the world is estimated at around £40 billion, $40 billion at the moment. The infrastructure investments that have been made are $400 billion. And the depreciation on those assets is estimated to be greater than the revenue we're generating. Now, I'm not an economist, but that doesn't sound like a recipe for profitability. And sooner or later, people who put $400 billion into investments, they want their money back. Fundamentally, that is going to be the reality. And for those who love the AI tools, this is no shade on the AI tools. They are really cool and do some really amazing stuff, but they're going to go pop, and then they're going to charge you a hell of a lot more for them. So if you're building dependencies, think really carefully about where you put those dependencies and don't make sure they're all in one basket. Also, this is fast. Look at the open models. There is some amazing stuff. You can run a decent AI model on a Raspberry Pi 5 with 16 gig of RAM, and that costs you, what, 150 quid? And you can run a perfectly serviceable, model to do all the stuff that you do in Copilot, you can do on a Raspberry Pi. And that's yours, you control it, you own it, you can see the open weights, you can manage it. So I do think keep exploring it, keep using it, keep testing it, but don't rely on it because you don't know what's going to be there when the ferryman comes to collect his due. And I'd probably think about your pension allocations. Thank you, James. And last but not least, I do not know what the future will bring. He does. I often do the GeoMob Christmas podcast with some of my friends, and we do this fun game where we do our year predictions. And we're always wrong, miles off, every time. So, this is 10 years out. I'm completely just, taking the mick. But for what it's worth, the three things I was thinking about after the last couple of days are where I imagine I can see the world changing towards. Drum roll. I think there will be potentially much tighter integration of near real-time sensing and the tools and platforms. I think the information in the world and our ability to interpret it and access it will become much more compressed. So I can imagine a place in which you might get real-time sensor data from room occupancy that feeds directly into a tool that lets you manage the air conditioning and stuff like that on a micro level. On a macro level, satellite information and sensor data coming in real time to let you plan real-time weather responsive events and stuff. I can see that all the pieces are in place. The processes are quite not there yet, but I can see over the next decade that could just collapse into being something where your desktop tools, your mobile tools will give you really quick and easy access to those insights and be calculated on the fly. The second thing I imagine in terms of our geospatial professionals, I talk a lot to kind of I hate to say this, but sort of business leaders in the geospatial, often non-technical people who run geospatial departments and teams. And one of the frustrations they always have is the teams are doing a lot of make work, stuff they don't feel they should be doing, So running huge, data libraries of their own. Because we're all data goblins, right? We all want to have all the data so we can do it ourselves. But you don't need it. There's plenty of places you can get it from. And managers don't like paying people to be data goblins. They want to pay you to do insight. So I think we're going to see in-house geospatial teams much more focused on business intelligence and market intelligence and product insight, and much less focused on tools and tech and data management, personally. I also think we're going to have a much more fragmented and diverse ecosystem for geospatial. I don't think it's going to be a winner takes all either way. I don't think Open's going to just blast Esri out of the water. I think Esri's going to go anywhere. I think Felt's going to win. But I think we're going to have a much more multipolar industry built on standards. And those who know me know I really love a really bad pun. And my friend Lisa came up with this one, which I thought was just too good not to share. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. Definitely no chance of dozing off after lunch there. Cool. Questions? Okay, I'll kick off with a very tongue-in-cheek one. You talked about the future and fragmented ecosystems and lots of different providers. Are we still going to be using shapefiles?
Till the end of time. I mean, like, yes. Yeah, we will. And that's the thing, is joking aside, like, of course he will. Because things don't go, there's not binary. It's just like we're going to have a blend. There is so much data in shapefiles around the world, and we are still creating it. It's not going to go anywhere. But, you know, maybe rather than it being a pain to reintegrate it, everything will just support everything more natively. You'll have built-in transformers that mean whether you throw a GeoPackage or a GeoParquet or a shapefile at something, it'll just work because the technology can do that. And particularly with some of the good things AI does, those kind of transformations should be pretty trivial. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, great talk, Alex. As you said, those are your personal views, but we now, or as you said, you're a divisional director for a huge corporation. Yeah. How do you get these ideas? Because what we do doesn't really matter that much if the corporations like the one you're working for don't adapt the change. So how do you promote that internally? And
that's a good question. Look, first of all, it's the business value, right? I said we're very pragmatic. We want to have the right solutions, the right customers. You know, we want to support people. I think the biggest thing I'm working on right now is trying to reassure people we can deliver robust propositions, and some of that's going to be actually going back to the last best version rather than being at the bleeding edge of FOSS. Going, actually, no, we're going to have a long-term support, set a package with what's our offer, what's our proposition, and get the business to support it. But the sell is actually quite easy internally because, of course, we want to do, you know, it gives us more control, frankly. But we're also huge Esri customers. So, you know, we are absolutely agnostic. We use the right tools for the right job. You know.
Cool. Any other questions?
One last thing from me, we're looking for a GIS trainer, as well as Nick. If you know anyone in that space who wants to do training, do get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Alex.